what have I got in here? I've got a stirrup pump. Okay, so if you are lucky enough to rescue yourself, get back in your boat, you then need to empty it of water. And again, it's tethered. If you're ever paddling out through fairly heavy surf or a big swell, it's quite easy for a big wave to dump on you and to wash bits off of your deck. It's a very good idea to try and keep your decks as clean as possible. You see people with almost like luggage, like they're going on holiday, strapped on their deck. Okay, possibly makes the boat a bit more unstable, but in most cases you really want to maintain a clean back deck, because that's generally where you'll be scrabbling back on to self-rescue yourself. And quite often, if you've got too much paraphernalia in here, VHF radios and all this stuff here, gubbins, that can almost be a hindrance in itself. Okay, so that will be kept on the front deck. Our spare paddles would be kept on the front deck, so that we've got a clean area for rescuing ourselves. My Froto, fantastic piece of kit. I'm a big fan of this one. Technically speaking, there are four different types of rescue you can do with that. It could be a short contact tow. I know it sounds silly. It could be a short long tow. It could be a long tow if it's very swelly, or you could reverse it, and then without getting yourself too close to the danger and the casualty, you could then throw, like a conventional throw bag, you could throw a line in, but you've still retained it. So what that means is you haven't got into the danger area yourself, and you've got two hands free to hold your paddle. Exceptional bit of kit. The other option is a waist one. This one has one real feature. The benefit is that once you've actually deployed that, you've probably got 15 or maybe 20 meters of rope. You've got to stow it, and the great thing about having a great big bag is you can stow it very quickly. It soon becomes quite a dangerous environment when there's a lot of rope floating around the water and multiple boats bobbing around. You need to be good with your housekeeping and stow your tow lines and throw lines very quickly out of the way before you become a problem. Okay. Another handy thing I carry, this is quite often on my deck. If I'm doing a decent journey, I've done my route plan, so I've already got my maps, so I roughly know where I'm going. I've identified any exit points, any evac points which have got vehicular access, because if I decide I've got to pull the trip, I need to know I can get a vehicle there to pick up the kayaks. So I've got my my local maps, but I've got my planning sheet. Obviously someone knows where we're going. I've planned to have lunch at a certain point or something. I've got my wind and tide. I've got all the main details of the weather and that. But if I'm going slower than I'm planning, or if I'm going faster than I planned on the trip, because we've got a following wind and swell, and we've said, oh, can you pick me up at Lynmouth at 3 o'clock, and we're actually paddling at 5 knots, not 3 or something, we're going to get there earlier. That may not be a problem, but if we're all standing around wet and cold waiting for the lift for an hour, that could be a problem. Okay. So it's not always possible to get a fix on the land. Sometimes we just become a little bit preoccupied and forget about our surroundings. We might be paddling along and not be aware of the fact that we're not making a lot of headway, Or the other side of the coin is we could be absolutely whizzing along because we're in a tide race or wind with tide, and we're shooting along. And this is a fantastic device in the fact that it will tell me the speed we're travelling at. I've never managed to program all the waypoints. I'm not clever enough for all that. I don't use it for that sort of navigation. I just sometimes just switch it on. It works off of satellites. It tracks 4, and then within a minute or two, it just flashes up with my average speed in knots, which is really, really handy. So I use that a lot because obviously most of our planning, we're working around a formula of distance and time. Okay, we know what speed that we'd average travel at, and that's how we've planned the trip. we know the distance from A to B that we want to travel. So, it's a combination of, are we ahead of time schedule or are we behind? Okay. This time of year, I'll probably carry a set of pogies. I like these reed ones simply because if you decided that it's a bit too warm, they roll up around the paddle and clip on, and they're out of the way. Okay. Might not be you, it might be someone else in the group that's got cold hands. So a pair of pogies are very good. And something else that you should think about is almost part of your repair kit. It's not a bad idea to carry a dry bag, an airbag, okay? Or actually, it sounds silly, but even a couple of cheap Beach Boys, okay? So should you be unlucky enough to get a hole in one of your in your boat, in one of your hatches, just simply by blowing up that or that, if you fill that void with air, you're displacing the potential water that may run in, okay? And it will take up absolutely no space, and it's just a handy thing to carry, So that's cheap as chips from the local bargain beach shop. Obviously, airbags are a bit more expensive, but this just happened to come out of a riverboat and was lying around, so I'm making good use of it. Okay, so there you have it. That's the sort of stuff I would carry, and if it was the summertime, the extra sort of things I would seriously consider are hats. Just because we're out on the water, it's not like we can suddenly jump out of the shade. If it's a hot day, you need to, increasingly, as global warming's taken over, we need to protect ourselves from the sun. So a nice hat with a big wide brim may prevent you from getting sunstroke. These hats are great, but there's no protection from the back of your neck. Yeah. Okay. So. And they do say you're not a proper sea kayaker till you got a tilly hat and a beard. So a really good thing to carry. And if you're in a group, it's quite often the case that someone will forget. So if you've got a spare one, and you can throw a baseball cap at someone or something, that normally goes down well. So that's a resume of the sort of stuff you should carry, and a good idea about where you should carry it in your boat based on the likelihood that you should need to grab it. The other thing, obviously, is you've got your paddle that you use, and you should always carry a spare, just in case it broke, snapped, or you lost it. Took a swim and didn't keep hold of it, and it drifted off. So most sea kayakers will carry another set of paddles on their front deck in under their bungees. Okay, so that would also be in my bag of stuff that I would stow.